I wanted to speak on Linux security. I saw a YouTube channel, the YouTube feed, and in the feed it said, Linux is not secure. I'm pretty sure that's what it said. And when I see things like that, like going through YouTube thumbnails, I see basically comments. I have comments on them as I go through these thumbnails, and to say Linux is not secure, I feel is, in that case, I feel like the person creating that video does not understand security. Because Linux can't be secure. Neither can Windows. Neither can my house. Neither can your car. Because security is a process. It's not an item or an object. Security is not a device you can buy. It's like almost everything else in life. For example, you want to avoid infection, right? Infection control is not an object. It's not an item. It's a process. And that's why it's difficult to maintain infection control across different domains, different people, different institutions. The same with IT security, like Linux and Windows. It is very difficult, and you see in the news and the headlines all the time that some places do worse than others, and you hear about people being hacked, or their network is down, or their website is defaced, or whatever you might have. And I think, to me, when I see that, that is an example of why it's a process. It illustrates that it's a process. You can't be in a meeting full of 17 heads of departments in the IT division of a company, and they can't throw money at it, at the problem, and say, well, do we need to pay $20 million for our security? Are we secure once we pay $20 million? What about 30? What about 100? Because the security is not something you can buy. It's an understanding you have to have so that you can implement the process that makes you secure. And when we're talking about makes you secure, like a statement like that, we're talking about relatively secure, relative to the guy down the street, relative to how secure I was yesterday, right? It's amazing to me that, but it illustrates, again, how across different domains, like even you can take backups, and that's still related to technology, but I guess you could say even a library might want to make sure they have backups. And I've been in frequent discussions in my career where the group sees the idea of purchasing backups, of purchasing the ability to have backups, right? Signing on support from an organization to handle backups, meaning what they're actually saying is, if a disaster were to occur in some way, whether through a hack or through a flood or a tornado or a hurricane, a bomb, anything, through some kind of disaster, the institution, the organization wants to make sure that they can still have their data. And it's not open-ended. It doesn't mean they can sure have their data in 1 year from the disaster, or from 2 years, or from even 6 months. Typically, they want it instantly. And so these things, because it's a process, just like security and infection control, any kind of process, you have to have understanding. To gain understanding, you have to have comprehension. But comprehension skills are a scarcity. Comprehension is not something you see every day that people have. People typically operate on following a set of procedures that they're familiar with. And you can't just say security are these procedures. That's a part of a process, But if you don't have comprehension, understanding, you won't know why you're doing those things. And if something changes in your institution, you won't update your procedures to reflect those changes unless you have understanding, which comes from comprehension. So anyways, that's just something, I saw that thumbnail, and it's just, I'm not trying to be this harsh critic of this, but it's just all the time, and I'm sure everybody's like this. You start looking through the YouTube thumbnails, and you go, oh, not again. I don't want to hear this, not again, not again. And you don't want to go down rabbit holes. So anyways, that's my short take on security.